Hey, it's America's Supermom. Thank you for joining me on my podcast. This series is the Corona Chronicles. I created this so that we would have an outlet of positivity in the midst of a lot of negativity. You know what I'm talking about. All the news, the fear around this virus, how it can affect us, what the new normal is looking like, and how so many things have changed that a lot of people feel like um, it is the end of the world, so to speak. So, this podcast was created so that those of us who have hope, who are willing to move forward with this new normal and innovate new things that will help us to be creative and positive. That is what this platform is for us to come together and share that positivity and that light with those who may need it. So if you're interested in sharing your insight, please reach out because we can never have enough positive news. So sit back and enjoy the show.
I want to thank you guys for listening today. I am so excited about my next guest. I really cannot remember when I didn't know her, okay, because she has just been a part of my life for such a long time. RaTasha Colbert is going to be joining me today, and that is her maiden name. Her married name is Sweatt, right? So here I am. See, I've got this stuff in my mind, thinking about how we grew up, and really excited to have her here today. One, I want to say it's great to be able to still have close friends from childhood that have been with you during the transitions of life, the ups and downs, the twists and turns, and what an appropriate time for us to connect during this global pandemic, something that we have both never experienced, but to be able to experience this with somebody that you've grown up with, uh, closer than, just acquaintances or business of people. And it's just like a breath of fresh air to be able to experience something so life altering with people that you know. So at this time, I'm going to give her the opportunity to introduce herself and share a little bit about where life is with her right now. And then we're going to dive into our interview.
Well, great. Good evening, Lachelle
Mm-hmm.
Ford. That's fact, right? Lachelle Ford.
Yes.
Uh, so anyway, as you mentioned, we've been friends since elementary school, and
Mm-hmm.
we just have bonded ever since we were in third or fourth, fifth grade. Who knows when? Like you said,
Mm-hmm.
you can't hardly ever remember. But, but we shared a special bond growing up in that
Mm-hmm.
we were both the only child, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I would go to your house, your mom was basically my mom. You come to my
Mm-hmm.
house, my mom was your mom. So we
Mm-hmm.
did a lot of fun stuff growing up, playing on the playground, singing and getting married and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
then you fast forward, like we just went to our 30th class reunion. That's crazy.
Yes.
That's like,
Isn't it crazy?
what? Really? But man, I don't even know where to begin. Like, you always think,
Mm-hmm.
oh, we're gonna grow up, you're gonna graduate from college, you're gonna get married, you'll have two or three kids and a dog or whatever. And then sometimes life doesn't always happen that way for you, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I know this joke that I always have with you, Lachelle. Every time I would talk to you, I'd say, "Are you pregnant?"
I am not pregnant. All right.
but for but for so many years, every time that we would talk, the answer would be yes.
So true.
So at this
So
at
true.
this point, I'm thinking like around 2003. Let's jump back to
Right.
2003, and that's when, whew, for finally I had been married for the first time. Let's say that the first time for about
Mhm.
6 years. Found out I
Mhm.
was pregnant, and then 6, 7
Mhm.
weeks into pregnancy, some crazy stuff started happening. Like I was getting sick. I couldn't really eat, just didn't have an appetite. Ended up, going to the hospital. They did blood work and they were like, whoa, so it was kind of early, but they said, let's go ahead and do some tests, radiology. And the technician, she was so cute. She was like, were you taking any fertility medication? I said, no. She's like, oh, dude, twins run in your family? I said, yes. And she's like, oh, okay. Okay. So she came back and she says, well, you're definitely pregnant with twins, which I was like, cool. I was kind of ecstatic because, again, my mother's brother has identical twin girls and my father's brother has identical twin girls. So I was like, okay, so here I am. I'm going to have some twins. This is good, but scary all at the same time. And blood work showed that my blood levels were very low. So had the first blood transfusion. And then with all in a matter of 14 more weeks, I had 2 additional blood transfusions. I had 3 MRIs. And then in week 20 of pregnancy, week 19, I had an endocrinologist. He was like, well, I scheduled to remove your kidney. We're going to schedule to have surgery to remove your kidney. And I was like, wait, what? When do you plan on doing this? And he was like, well, we can schedule it out within the next month or so. And I'm like, while I'm pregnant? Really? You can do that? Yeah, we just, we have this process where we kind of put like a shield. I was like, nah. I can wait. It can wait. So that very next week, I went into preterm labor and, they tried to stop it, but we just couldn't. So I get to experience my first helicopter ride to the hospital in St. Petersburg. I was living in Tarpon Springs at the time, so it was really like a 45-minute drive, but it was probably a 5-6 minute helicopter ride. And so they took me there and they worked with me for almost 12 hours or so, and just couldn't hang in there any longer. So both twins came, and they were identical twin boys, and they lived for about 15 minutes, but at 20 weeks, they're too young to incubate, and they had to be like 23 weeks, and they said, they would have all kinds of issues with, underdeveloped lungs and, brain function, all that kind of stuff. But it was just, amazing. I think I was just kind of in shock because obviously it's like, wait a minute, I'm only at week 20 and these babies are here and I'm not prepared, I didn't know what to do. So, they passed away and had to have the funeral, had to have all of that. And so it was really, that was a different time in life because, everybody was so excited. We were just anticipating, having these boys, and then they passed away. But it's been an interesting journey. So fast forward 2 years, 2015, pregnant again. Oh, I was excited. Okay, let's try this again. And went for the first ultrasound, and it was that kind of crazy look again. I was like, what now? So I did blood work. I had 69 chromosomes. Really? What is going on with my body? So my chromosomes split twice. And so that's called, I believe it's called a triploidy pregnancy. And they were just like, it's just not going to work. I mean, it's just not. So we're going to have to, take, do a DNC. And I thought, wow, okay. Yeah. So that was tax day. You always have like dates to remind you of different things. That was like April 15th in 2005. So anyway, fast forward. Got a divorce in 2006. Hallelujah. Because sometimes divorce is good, okay? Especially when you've done all that you could do and then the other
Mhm.
person wants to act a fool and do the things that the Lord said that they
Mhm.
should not be doing. So that was a
Mhm.
legitimate out. That wasn't me saying, you know what,
Mhm.
I can't do this, because quiet as kept, I wouldn't have
Right.
stayed in almost 9 years. You know,
Right.
um,
Right.
mm-mm. When your bad outweighs the good days, then it's like, no, this is
Yeah.
too much. So got divorced in 2006. As I said, I was living in Florida, and so I thought, you know what, it's time for a fresh start. So I moved to Texas, right outside of
Mm.
Houston, in Humble, Texas, with my cousin.
Mhm.
I was there for a couple of
Mhm.
months, but my stepfather had a stroke, so I said, you know what, it's time for me to go back to Indiana. So I moved back to
Mhm.
Indiana and been here ever since. It was really interesting, the whole
Mm.
dating scene, though, after divorce.
Mhm.
You're older. You're like, what is going on? It was crazy. The dating scene was
Mhm.
crazy for, shoot. Let's see how many years. Not almost 9 years of dating. Oh my gosh,
Wow.
horrific.
Yeah. Mhm.
I feel like I'm rambling on, Shell, so you can stop anytime.
No, you're
But I was
doing
thinking,
good.
like, to be honest, if you've never been in a good marriage, or what you thought was a good marriage, and
Mhm.
then you get out of it, it's hard to even imagine what a good marriage is like. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
really,
Right.
like, I'm real. I'm really gonna meet somebody that is so much better, and it's gonna be perfect for me, and all this other stuff. It was like, man. But the good thing is, I have really good, close friends and family, and they're like,
Mhm.
you know what, just be patient, just wait on the Lord, he will send
Mhm.
you somebody. I'm like, well, he's got to, because obviously the first time I jumped the gun.
Mhm.
Big time.
Mhm.
But you try to be
Mhm.
grown, I'm gonna do this. And
Mhm. Mhm.
there were warning signs, and I think people need to learn to look and listen to those warning signs.
Yes. So true. So
But
true. But we all go
mhm,
through that, because I mean, you as a woman, everybody's like, "Oh, your biological clock is
right.
ticking." And just like you said, when you were divorced, and just that scene, you're
Mm,
older, you're not young as you used to be, and that whole mindset, because society has set that up for us,
absolutely.
you know.
And then
Mhm.
and then you kind of
So,
think to yourself, you're like, well, shoot, you want to marry somebody, or you want to meet somebody that, I mean, in your mind, you're thinking, oh Lord, I can't. Let's just put it like this. I said I was the only child, and you know that, but I do have step
mhm.
siblings. Okay, so I grew up,
Mhm.
with four step siblings, so I was able to
Mhm.
just kind of be in the struggle a little bit. I saw what my mother went through as a step parent, and it's not
Mhm.
always glamorous,
Mhm.
So I'm like, dang, at
Mhm.
this point, if I meet
Mhm.
somebody, 9 times out of 10, they probably gonna have some kids, at least one child.
Right.
And then, I had to take a
Mhm.
step back and say, well, it could have been me, because who's to say the
Right.
twins, lived, and then, say the marriage was still on a downward, spin, and divorce, I would have had,
Mhm. Mhm.
boys. I would have had two twins. They would have been
Mhm.
at that point in time, depending on how, at what point in the dating scene, they could have been preteens or whatever. So it's like,
Mhm.
I'm not above
Mhm.
the law, but I'm sure
Mhm.
you probably have questions. But we'll get to how the story does have a happy ending, as you know. So we can talk
Mhm.
about that too.
Mhm. Yeah. Now, I want to stop here because you had this situation where that marriage wasn't good. You alluded to the whole thing of not knowing what a good marriage is when you have that
Yeah.
example. And so this is really kind of like, for some people listening, it may not be a marriage, but it's like, right now, we have so much uncertainty about what tomorrow's going to look like. You know, some people were saying, oh, we're going to get through this. This is going to
Right.
pass. And then other people are like, oh, it's the
Mm-hmm.
end of the world, you know, sign of the
Right.
time. So, you know, we're not comparing the same situation by any means, but the kind of tenacity or perseverance you have to kind of get out of that mindset. What did that look like for you to kind of be able to have optimism, so to
Right.
speak?
Oh my goodness. A lot of patience. I mean, woo. And I think
Mhm.
for a while, this is really huge. This is really huge. The word forgiveness.
Mhm.
Okay, that's huge
Mm.
because
Mhm.
it kind of
Mhm.
works two ways, right? You think of forgiveness as you forgiving
Mhm.
somebody else with, for what they've done. But quiet as it's
Mhm.
kept, that person might not even realize that they wronged you. Okay, so they've moved on with their life,
Mhm.
hadn't thought anything about you. Um, so in
Mhm.
addition to forgiving someone else, you kind of have to forgive yourself and move on too, right? Because like I said before, when I
Mhm.
got married the first time, I'm a product of divorced parents. I have friends, had gotten
Mhm.
divorced. My dad's been divorced only 3 times. But I mean, like I was not going to be that person to get a divorce. When I stood up at
Right.
that altar,
Right. Right.
I said, better for worse, and Lord knows we went through that. Richer for poor. I mean,
Mhm.
I lost my job after I got out of the hospital for 5 days. So imagine being pregnant,
Mhm.
lose your job. You're like, what in the world?
Mhm.
Getting denied for
Right.
unemployment because the
Mhm.
doctor said that I could not actually drive. Like I was on bed rest. I could not drive because it
Bed
was high
rest.
risk. And so,
Mhm.
I was like, I'll take anything. I'll phone sale, whatever I need to do. But to be denied
Mhm.
unemployment, are you serious? At this point in life, I've been working
Mhm.
over,
Mhm.
15, close to 20 years. Well, not that much. Not that much. I've been working,
Mhm.
getting a check since I was probably 15. But are you kidding? Do I
Mhm.
look like I just don't want to work?
Mhm.
So that was kind of
Mhm.
different. That was different, but I digress. So let's talk back. We get back to the forgiveness part. So I remember it was
Mhm.
one night, like, gosh, probably 4 years maybe after I had been divorced and
Mhm.
just kind of living home, alone, and what I'm saying, having horrible relationships. Dating seems horrible, but I
Mhm.
had this dream. It was so vivid, and it kind
Mhm.
of like woke me up in the middle of the night. And so I got up and I was just
Mhm.
walking through the house, right? And I have an alarm
Mhm.
system on my house. And for the first time, I looked at the alarm pad and I had not turned the alarm on. So that kind of freaked me out,
Mm.
right? And then it was just this whole
Mhm.
spiritual thing like, you know what? I'm up in here dependent on this alarm to keep me safe and all this other stuff. And then I just started thanking God. I was like, thank you, Jesus, for your protection, right? And then for some reason,
Mhm.
then my mind shifted to forgiveness. And for the first time, I was like, you know what?
Mm.
I'm not going to move anywhere. I'm not going to be able to progress and move forward in life, in any type of relationship, you know, the possibility of getting married. If I'm carrying all this like negativity and this hurt and anger and
Mhm.
just all these emotions were wrapped up. And so at that point, I just said, you know what? I forgive you. It's not like I had to call the ex-husband and tell him, but I just vocalized it.
Mhm.
And then it was just kind of a release, It was like pressure lifted. And after that, I was
Mm.
like, I'm gonna be okay. I'm gonna make it. It's all good, because
Mhm.
I thought to
Mhm.
myself,
Mhm.
I probably won't be single for the rest of my life. I'll meet somebody eventually, but I was just going to
Mhm.
have to be patient and stop looking, right? I said to
Mhm.
myself,
Mhm.
when he does find me and we start talking, the 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 confirmation will be like when he says, like, I found you, like, I've been looking for you. Because that's what it should be, right? The husband's
Mhm.
supposed to find the wife. He's finding the good.
Mhm.
So I was like, okay,
So
it'll
true.
work that way. So
Mhm. That's awesome. Now, and so, that is just a great thing. And, talk to us a little bit about um, the strength that you had to have, going through a divorce because, during this pandemic, there's some people that, their marriages are falling
mhm,
apart or it may not be their marriage, but they're losing their job and their identity is in the job that they've had for over 20
mhm,
years or and now they have to pivot. And so everything that they've known, like you said, it's like, you have these ideals
mhm,
and these standards that you're going to live by, but something comes out of the blue, that you were not anticipating or was out of your control. So, how did you manage to have that positivity or,
mhm.
and maybe it wasn't positive, but what was that experience like to kind of get past, the ideals of what society said, or, what were some of your routines that you had to do to kind of
Right.
make
Well,
it through that?
first and foremost, Lachelle, I had to
Mhm.
really take time to find RaTasha Shaitan Colbert. Okay, I had to go back to the basics because
Mhm.
what that marriage
Mhm.
did was made me a completely different person. So, if I could
Mm.
tell anybody, I would say don't lose yourself. If it's meant to be,
Right.
then you shouldn't have to change who you are to satisfy or to please
Mhm.
this person. You know what I'm saying? I shouldn't have to
Mhm.
act one
Mhm.
way at home and then be somebody else
Mhm.
outside the home. You know, it shouldn't
Mhm.
be where your
Mhm.
friends are like, I don't like your. I mean, granted, you're not gonna like everybody, but if
Right.
they're just like, I can't stand him, teeth clenching, there's things that are wrong, and then you try to cover up and make excuses, then that's not right, right? So
Right.
for me,
Yeah.
I had to
Mhm.
I had to get back to RaTasha, Tasha. I had to be that person because
Mhm.
I've always been full of life and funny and just hanging
Mhm.
out. But that was just
Mhm.
for a period of time. That wasn't me. So definitely it's finding
Right.
yourself, right? And then okay, so you're
Mhm.
talking about
Mhm.
life changes and things that happen now. You have to really look back and reflect. Sometimes you have to write it down because this is what I did. I was like, let me write
Mhm.
out the good
Mhm.
things, let me write out the bad things. But really, you have to say, you
Mhm.
know what? If, and especially, I mean, the number one thing is is faith, right? And just being
Mhm.
true to your relationship with the Lord and allowing Him
Mhm.
to just keep you. Because really, a lot of times, if you look back, you're like, how in the world did I get through that?
Isn't that the truth? I know that's right. I think that with these deliveries, with all these babies, I'm
Yeah.
looking at them like, what? I
Yeah.
feel what you're
So, I
saying.
mean,
Yeah.
it might seem rough, like that. Dang, is this the life that I thought that I would be in? Not really, but sometimes, you
Mhm.
make a plan, but that plan's really not what you should be doing. Like, because you can be thinking
Mhm.
probably smaller than what your blessing is going to be, right? So if it's for you, it's for you
That's
no matter
good.
what you do. So um we mess up because my husband and I joke now. We
Mhm.
talk about like, dang, why did I meet you like 10 years ago or 15 years ago. But guess what? We were both two totally different people. We had not been through the life
Right.
experiences that will allow us to appreciate
Mm-hmm.
the person that we are now. Right? Because I had to go
So
through some
true.
stuff that I'm like, I wish
Mm-hmm.
would. I can't, I'm not gonna do this again. So you
Mm-hmm.
have to really set, your
Mm-hmm.
boundaries and know what is, what you
Mm-hmm.
can accept and what's unacceptable. And I promised myself, I was
Right.
like, if I, shame on me if I would jump right back into something like that ever again.
Right. Right. I see that. Now, so fast forward, we're here. You guys are married, and let's talk a little bit about the whole concept of having another baby. Because a lot of people, they put a lot of weight on, oh, you're married, when are y'all going to have a
Mm-hmm.
baby, and all these type of things. And even just the thought process, because there's a lot of people, I know a lot of people myself who um they have
Right.
not been able to have children, and that's also another thing. It's like, well, how many
Right.
kids do y'all have? And
Right.
it's like a common question. So what advice would you give somebody to
Mm-hmm.
that's in that space, whether you want to have a baby and haven't had one, or you're trying and it's not happening, or you've gone through
Mm-hmm.
fertility or whatever the case is,
Oh man.
what would you
Okay.
say to them
I'm.
today?
I got a couple things to talk about.
Mhm.
So, and how timely,
Mhm.
since last Sunday was Mother's Day, right? And so, if you've ever
Mhm.
been in a situation where you've had a child and lost a child, that's hard for a lot of people. Like that can make or break some
Mhm.
folks. And it's something that wears with you, through the rest of your life. I mean, if you, man, it's hard to describe, like, because there's always like the what
Mhm.
ifs, right? But and then people, it's like if they don't see you
Right.
with a physical child, you don't have a physical baby, then you're not a mother. No, that's not it, because I have
Mhm.
so many little cousins and friends with children. I've been in Tata for a long time.
Mhm.
You know, um,
Mhm.
godchildren. I mean, they're all a blessing because trust and believe. You can look around and there's a lot of folks that have babies, okay, and just not mother
Right.
material at all. So let me just talk about that.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
what I found
Mhm.
when I met Eric is that right off the bat, like I found out he had a daughter. And I was like, okay. And then the
Mhm.
more we started talking about it, I mean, like, her birthday was around the same day as my twins, same initials. I mean, there were just all these
Mm.
similarities. And I saw a picture of this little girl who was 8 years old at the time. And it was almost scary, Shell, because if you
Mhm.
put her picture or if she just stands in front of my childhood pictures, it's like the same person. So here's like this is freaky because this is
Wow.
like a little mini me. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't birth this
Wow.
child, but if we go out, they're like, "Oh, it's your daughter," and I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, she's my bonus child, but it's kind of uncanny the
Mhm.
resemblance, but that's kind of funny because people will see my husband and I, they'd be like, "Is that your brother?" No, but so here's
Mhm.
the thing:
Mhm.
when we first started dating, um, in my mind, I was thinking, okay, he's a great guy. He's all right, like a prepackaged, right? Take him. I got the daughter, so
Right.
I will love her like she's my own. She's got her own mother, right? But I'll be the best bonus mom that she ever had.
Mhm.
But you know, it was always a thought,
Mhm.
like, man, you finally meet like the perfect guy for me, right? He's perfect for me.
Mhm.
And I'm like, he's so loving.
Mhm.
He's a wonderful father. And I'm like, I kind of missed out on all that stuff, right? So if it just for anything to have to
Mhm.
try to recreate the whole pregnancy experience and what would it have been like, you know, to just have this
Mhm.
loving father and husband, to me that just would have like put the icing on the cake, right? And you know, after we got married
Mhm.
in 2017, it was like, okay, I had been off of, here we go, we're getting deep anyway, we're grown folks, but I had been off birth control
Mhm.
since forever, right? Like
Mhm.
12 years. I'm like, so if the Lord
Mhm.
says, you know what, Todd's supposed to have a child, I'm gonna have a child. So, you know, it's not like we,
Mhm.
you know, did basal temperatures and all this other stuff. But I was like, you know, if it happens, it happens. Um, and it hasn't for me
Right.
up to this point. And I'm like, how old am I?
Mhm.
48.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Right.
It can still happen, girl. You might be
Right.
what is
Exactly.
it,
Girl,
Sarah?
wait a minute though. There's been a couple of times that, you know, ain't flow was late. And I was like, uh-oh. Uh-oh. What do I do? So, I mean, you know, if it's meant to be, it'll be.
Yeah.
But you know,
Right.
the blessing of having a good, supportive, loving spouse is that they're gonna love you no matter what. I mean, you know, Eric is like, babe, you know what?
Yeah.
If we have a
Mhm.
baby, great. But if we don't, I'm not gonna love
Mhm.
you any less. You know what I'm saying? So I'm having to, you know, like I
Mm.
said, I kind of
Yeah.
have this like vicarious motherhood through my bonus daughter, through everybody else's kids. No, there's one thing
Mhm.
that I think about. I'm
Mhm.
like, because, you know, of course, being the only child and being the caregiver for my mom, I'm like, man, just imagine folks that don't have children. You know, it's like when they get older, you
Right.
know, it's like, who's gonna care for them? Who's gonna take care of, you know, of them? Not
Yeah.
saying that bonus daughter's not gonna do that for me, but it's like, man,
Right. It's so true. I mean, because I, being an only child, I mean, I deal
yeah.
with that with my mom thinking about it, because that whole dynamic of her being a widow, and it's like I'm worrying about her being by herself.
No.
That definitely wasn't in the plan. And yeah, so I totally get that. And I mean, I love the way that, to me, I think life is
Mhm.
all about living to the fullest. And when we sometimes have expectations, that's when things can kind of
Right.
go crazy and go south, because we're thinking about the expectations more than actually even living, so it's like you have a husband who loves you, but, we
Right.
can be our own stumbling block because we're like, oh, I want a baby. And you don't realize the
Right.
blessing in front of
Right.
you. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So I think that is just awesome that you've been able to have that perspective, because so many people right now in that place are just thinking about what they don't
Ooh,
have instead of what they do
that's a
have,
word, Shell. That is.
you know?
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. So that is awesome. Now, so giving back, now you are, back in Indiana, married again, bonus daughter, and, the type of
Mm-hmm.
field that you work in now, you know, how
It's
did
kind
that
of
happen
interesting
for you?
because I'm in. So my background would really, growing up, you know, I was going to be an engineer. That's what I'm going to be. I'm going to be a mechanical engineer at Purdue University. Girl, got to Purdue,
Mhm.
made it past that like
Mhm.
first semester. maybe second semester, and those engineering classes hit, girl, I was like, I am dumb. You know, in high school, you could just pass the test. You know what I'm saying? You didn't have to study that much. And then you get to college, and it was like, oh my God. Okay, but you're like in a mathematics type class, but where are the numbers? Okay, now we're dealing with alphabets. Girl, I about lost it. I was like, oh my gosh, okay, maybe this isn't quite what I'm supposed to be. So, I switched over to technology, and I was in organizational leadership. I had done internships in the manufacturing, automotive industry, and I did have an opportunity, to work in automotive, and then when I went to Florida, I kind of switched over to the quality kind of aspect, got into retail, like merchandising, and that was kind of interesting, precious jewelry. So fast forward, moved back to Indiana, and found myself, it was interesting, in program development, working with youth, nonprofit, which was kind of up my alley because I've been working with suppliers in manufacturing. I've been working with vendors in retail. Quality was my thing. So trust and believe when it comes to doing audits and things like that, I was on it. I'm not going to lose a $3 million stone, but anyway, so just kind of getting back to working with youth in a nonprofit was very interesting. And I will say that I did program development for about 5 years. And so I realized within the organization, it is kind of flat, right? And so you always hear about the glass ceiling. And so my glass ceiling was like, wait a minute, my director is younger than me, okay? And I don't foresee her leaving before me. So in order for me to move up in the organization, I'm going to have to switch. I'm going to have to jump departments, right? And so I had an opportunity to switch departments and go into a membership role as a director, which was cool because I totally got it. Having worked in program for 5 years, it's like, well, we need members to be participants in these programs that are being developed, right? So I got how that all connected together. So I did that for about 3 years or so. And then, me, I'm all about the numbers, not the letters, but I know how to do some market share and data analysis and all that good stuff. And so when I started really kind of putting it together and helping out, the department and other departments with some of the data, I switched over into a data analysis position. And I did that for a couple of years, and that was great. So at this point, I've been with the organization at that time for about 8-9 years. So I feel like I have a good understanding about how each department works together collaboratively. I have a good feel for all of the positions and what they entail and what would make that person successful. And so let's fast forward a little bit. Basically, was called into the meeting room and said, hey, we're kind of missing out on one of your skill sets. You're good with people. You are good with relationship building. And you're just really good with communication. And we think that you would be good at doing some of our hiring and onboarding. So I was like, okay, I guess I could do it, So kind of teeter-totter, did both, right? You just kind of like have multiple jobs. So I did that for a little bit. And then really last year is when I just transitioned completely over into human resources. And so that has been,
That's
it's been
awesome.
an interesting switch because, like, just looking back, I feel like I hadn't been through too many interviews in life, but I knew the type of things that I wanted to know about a company if I was interviewing for a job. Like, first of all, okay, what's number one? How much am I gonna make? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
because if
Right.
I have an
Right.
expectation
Mm-hmm.
of X dollar set amount, and then I go through the interview process and all this, and you come with a figure that's so much lower, well, guess what, I just kind of wasted your time and my
Mm-hmm.
time too in this whole interviewing process, right? It could have opened up another opportunity for someone else to interview.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did a little differently when I moved into that role is I just kind of really owned pre-screening, right? So I see this application that comes through.
Mm.
I pan through it, and I know that the person hopefully has looked through the job description to see what it's about, to say, hey, I have these skill sets that line up. But the real deal is, what do they really do
Mm-hmm.
in this job, right? I need a kind of a day in the life of.
Right.
So I just make phone calls on the pre-screen and say, hey, do you have 20, 30 minutes? And let's just real talk. This is just me and you talking. The, these are the requirements of the job. But most of
Mm-hmm.
all, this is the salary. This is the expectation. Okay. And these are the wonderful benefits that you're going to do, that
Mm-hmm.
you're going to, receive. Because
Mm-hmm.
again, nonprofit,
Mm-hmm.
it's not like we're out to make millions of dollars. We have to believe in the mission of the
Mm-hmm.
organization, because otherwise it just, you're just kind of there. But you want to
Mm-hmm.
see the fruits of your
Mm-hmm.
labor, and it has been, I've been with my
Right.
nonprofit
Right.
organization for 13 years. And again, I've been in 4 different departments. So
Wow.
I can walk a girl through the whole process. So that's what it's all about.
Mm-hmm.
And it was exciting because,
That's
I
good.
was
That's
a
good.
part of this organization as a young child up through high school. So I know all about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of interesting because when you're participating in
Mm-hmm.
something at a young age, you don't think that's a real job. Like, people actually get paid to do that work, because
Right.
we rely
So
heavily,
true.
obviously, on volunteers, to lead
Right.
and serve. So
To do.
it's
Yeah.
been a nice little journey.
That is awesome. Now, so, one of the things I want to kind of highlight is, this promotion opportunity and advancement based on you
Mm-hmm.
being good with people and relationships and communication. And this is something very key right now because a lot of people are pivoting in their jobs or, they have to learn different applications from, transitioning
Mm-hmm.
from live events to doing things on the computer. And so that's a different form of communication. So, what kind of tips would you give somebody who is in this space of pivoting, with possibly starting a new job or, just transitioning from a new way, from an old way to a new way of conducting business? What advice would you give them, in terms of
Okay.
relationships and
First of all,
communication?
I would really encourage, and I'm this is still a learning process for me, but I would really encourage for
Mm-hmm.
anyone to do a predictive index, a strength finder, because a lot of times you kind of think,
Mm.
like, what your strengths are, but it's kind of interesting to do
Mm-hmm.
a strength finder. The most recent one that I participated in with the senior leadership team, we all did it, and mine actually came out. It was the Clifton Strengths Finder. Have
Mm-hmm.
you heard of that? Shell. So, in
Okay.
summary,
Mm-mm.
there's like four domains. There's like executing. Okay, if you're an executor, um, basically you kind of make things
Mm-hmm.
happen, right? And then there's the influencing domain. So that is, you
Mm-hmm.
help take charge, you speak up, you make sure others are heard. And then there's the relationship building, and that's helping build
Mm-hmm.
strong relationships that hold a team together. And then
Mm-hmm.
finally, there's strategic thinking, and that helps you absorb and analyze
Mm-hmm.
information, that informs better
Mm-hmm.
decisions. So once when I completed the Strength Finder, my two areas of domain were the influencing and the relationship building, which are perfect for being in human
Mm.
relations and working with people, right? Because my two high points under the
Mm-hmm.
influencing was I'm a woo. And I was like, I'm a woo woo woo. So basically what that is, woos are exceptionally talented in the woo theme. They love the challenge of meeting new people and winning them over. Now you know me for 2/3 of your life show. You
Mm-hmm.
know that's me, right?
Mm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
we also we get
Right.
satisfaction from breaking the
Right.
ice and kind of making a connection with someone, right? So I'm the woo. The second part, that I
Okay.
was
Yeah.
strong in is communication.
Mm-hmm.
And so, they generally find it easy to put their thoughts into words,
Mm-hmm.
and they're a good conversationalist and presenter. I still get a little stage fright,
Mm.
but I think once I, get going, you just kind of overlook it a little bit. But,
Mm-hmm.
I'm about communication, and you have to have those things. And one
Mm-hmm.
one thing that I saw definitely a need within the organization, and it's within any organization, is you always have to make sure in terms of employee morale and culture that everyone feels connected. You want to remove that us and them. You want everyone to feel
Mm-hmm.
a part of the organization.
Mm.
If they're the janitor up to the chief of everything, you want to be sure that everyone feels like their voices are being heard, that they feel like they are an asset to the
Mm-hmm.
organization. And then, so again, those two key points, the woo
Mm-hmm.
and the communication, those were the influencing part. The other three things that I had all fell in the relationship building.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm connected, like
Mm-hmm.
connectedness, and they basically have faith in the links among all things. So
Mm-hmm.
they believe that there are few coincidences and that almost everything has a meaning,
Mm.
right? You know how people are like, oh, that's luck. No, that's not
Mm.
luck. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's faith. That's blessings, right? And then also positivity. Um,
Mm-hmm.
having a contagious enthusiasm,
Mm.
upbeat, and can get others excited about what they're going to do. And then
Mm.
finally, an includer. I want to make sure that
That's good.
people don't feel left out, and
Mm.
always make an effort to include others. So again, finding your
Right.
strengths, find out what your strengths are. And like right now with COVID-19 and shelter in place, there are, when I tell you, oh my
Mm-hmm.
God, there's so many webinars that you can log into right now that don't cost anything.
Mm-hmm.
Just web yourself to death.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I mean, just true.
Right.
Sometimes, I'll be in a
Right.
webinar, and
Yeah.
it seems like the presenter
This is
just kind of
true.
hypnotizes me. Sometimes, I'm like, I'm glad my video's not on because I done dozed off a little bit. But, there's
Right.
so much to learn out there. So, yeah. So
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
that's the advice that I
That's
would
good.
give.
All right. You did great. Now, so, and lastly, are there any books or podcasts that you would recommend to
Mm.
anybody?
Mm-mm-mm. Let me think about that. There, ooh. Okay. I have been listening to a series basically for the last 4 weeks. And
Okay.
it was put together by
Mhm.
a group, and it was oh my goodness. I think Thrivent, and there was another one. Let me think about it really quick, Shell. My mind. Ooh, Lord, not those little moments.
Okay. You
A
good?
little senior moment, right?
Senior
But if you
moments is
give
what
me
we
just
call
one
them.
second, the series
Mhm.
was titled Refuel and Recharge, I believe. And I've listened to a couple of really great speakers.
Oh, that sounds good.
One speaker was Max Yoder, and
Mhm. And
Yoder.
what's that?
Yes.
YODER?
And Max is a
Okay.
CEO of Lessonly. And what Lessonly is,
Mm.
um, they help people or organizations to, they have simple training software. Yeah, that helps organizations, like people learn, practice. And he has a
Okay.
book called Do Better Work. Do Better Work, Finding
Mhm.
Clarity, Camaraderie, and Progress in
Okay.
Work and Life. So shout out to Max. Max, hit me up. Hit
Okay.
me up. And then
All right,
a
Matt.
couple of weeks ago, I also listened to a webinar with Sarah Shaheen. She is the
Okay.
Sarah
Now
with
I'm
an
gonna have to have you
H,
spell that. Is it regular
and
Sarah with
Shaheen
an H
is,
or
I believe,
okay?
Sheheen. Shaheen or
Mhm.
Shahan.
Okay.
But I was really impressed with her. Now, her organization basically is like professional coaching, but they work with organizations. So it's almost like a membership. So an organization would pay per employee monthly, for the year. And what they can do is they are able
Oh.
to call and speak with like a kind of like a professional coach, if you will, to kind of talk them through, any challenges that
Oh.
they might have the job. So that was pretty interesting. But
Yeah.
Sarah was really
Now that's good.
she was just like sitting in my living room talking to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, really? How do you even know that I'm kind of
Wow.
feeling
Yeah.
this right now? Her organization is called Braverly, and that's
Mhm.
BRAVELY.
Okay.
Or she's not Bravely. But she was talking about a couple different mindsets, and
Okay.
I was like, oh, she is just
Okay.
stepping on my toes. She was talking about embracing
Mhm.
vulnerability and not missing the opportunity
Mhm.
for connection, especially like during this time. Like,
Mm.
we have to give ourselves permission to remove any mask and
Mm.
just invite in empathy, right? Because folks are going through some stuff right now, so we need to be
Yes.
transparent. And
Yeah.
then she, kind of broke it down, like, what does vulnerability look like?
Mhm.
Just kind of acknowledging the reality of what's happening, right? We're all
Mm.
kind of stressed. We're going through some uncertain times right
Mhm.
now. And then the second part that she talked about was building resilience. And that was
Mhm.
huge. That was so huge because it was talking, she was talking about creating a
Mhm.
capacity to recover quickly from adversity. And Lord knows we all experience adversity in life, right? And talking about, like when you're on the airplane,
Mm.
the flight attendants always tell you to
Mhm.
put your mask on first, right? Before you can help somebody else, you need to give yourself some air. Um,
Right.
but when she talked about We have to learn to
Right.
respond and not react in order not to burn out or burn the bridges. Girl, I was up here one shout.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that is so true. Like, ooh, yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But in addition to
That's the
building
good stuff
resilience,
right
we
there.
have to be a
Mm-hmm.
source of
Mm-hmm.
resilience to other people. So we have to make sure that we intentionally appreciate others and recognize them, believe in them, and then have their backs.
So good. Yeah. Well, this has just been
Mm-hmm.
wonderful. I have really enjoyed our time together. And, as people can witness with friends, you can
Mm-hmm.
not talk to each other for
You're
years.
right.
And even though it hasn't been that long, though, we've been doing better.
Yes. Yes.
Ever since the reunion, we have been kind of keeping up with each other. So that's good. But it's like
Always.
the conversation just starts from where it left off. So that's just awesome. So I just want to thank you for all the transparency that you were able to share. And I know it really was enlightening for a lot of the viewers because um, sometimes when
Oh
we're
my
in
goodness.
those dark places, we think,
Ooh.
man, I'm never going to get out of this.
Mm.
Nobody else understands. But to hear your energy, laughter, and just um, poised with being
Mm-hmm.
able to face, a lot of these challenges and, discuss them in a way
Mm.
that is so empowering is just
Well, thank you for
remarkable to witness.
having
So
me.
I just want to thank you for
Two
sharing that
things
with us.
before I leave. My favorite
Mm-hmm.
ultimate
Yes.
all time
Mm-hmm.
Bible verse is Proverbs 3, verse 5 and 6. Trust in the
Okay.
Lord with all your heart and lean not into
Mm-hmm.
your own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and
Mm-hmm.
he shall direct your paths. So that helps me through, right? Because Lord knows there'll be some times where
Love
you take the
that.
wrong road.
Mm-hmm.
We've all been down it. And so that's been info. And then you think of
Right.
another thing is
Mm-hmm.
when it seems hard and you're like, oh my gosh, there's mountains ahead of me. How in the world am I gonna to make it over? But if a mountain didn't have
Mm-hmm.
those little if it wasn't so high and have all those little cliffhangers, like you wouldn't have anything to pull up on to get to the other side, right? So don't give me a hill. Because I might
Mm.
roll back down.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I'll take the mountain.
That is so good. I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. That is awesome. That's good. Mhm.
that's right.
And hey, if your faith
That's
is
right. You
really
can help
big
some
and you're
help
doing
some
great
other
stuff, you
folks,
can move that mountain.
get to the other
That's
side
another thing
along with
also.
you.
So that's great. Absolutely.
Yes,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Well, this has just been wonderful, RaTasha, and we're gonna have to do it again. This was really fun. But and I just want to thank you for sharing with me because
Hmm.
a lot of people are like podcast, what is that? I've never done it and
Thank
everything. You
you.
had to upload the app, so I just want to say thank you
Thank you
so
so
much
much, Shell.
for experiencing something new with me. I love it. Okay.
All right, take
You're
care.
welcome. Well,
Mhm.
look.
Thank you for joining me on this episode. I really enjoy providing content that inspires and challenges us to be a better version of ourselves. If you are interested in being a guest on the show, please email me at info@lachelleatkins.com. You can also reach out to me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Pinterest, or my YouTube channel. If there was something in this episode that resonated with you, it probably will resonate with someone else. So please share it. It's free. It doesn't cost anything. But those aha moments, those moments of really getting something and changing your perspective are very, very pivotal in having people change the trajectory of their lives. And so being able to share insightful information so that other people can grow is the easiest thing that we can do as we pay it forward. So again, I want to thank you all for listening. And if you have time, write out a review. Go to iTunes, Anchor, wherever you can find this podcast on any of those platforms, and write a review about what impact this episode had on you, what you learned, or whatever. Any feedback is great because it just helps me to understand what content is really beneficial for those that are listening. So again, I want to thank you all for your support and taking the time to spend some time with me and my guests. And I wish you a wonderful day. Thanks for listening.